go. Just getting things fired up here. I'm Rod Jans, and I'm your host today. We're recording this to Fuel Radio. We've been visiting every couple months with Mike Wilson, who is a realtor with REMAX Treeland, which is in Langley. And good to talk to you again, Mike.
Thanks for having me.
Just had a bit of a pre-interview conversation. We've been all over the map. There's lots happening in the world.
You want
Mike?
to talk about fishing, or do you want to talk about the sun, or do you want to talk about business? Whatever you like.
We'll try to stick to real estate.
All right, fair enough.
Yeah. One of the things that you've been taking a look at, and you regularly take a look at as a realtor, I'm sure, is the stats. And it's been a really, I mean, it's an interesting time in the world, like I said to begin with, and that includes real estate. Like, it's just been some unexpected things have happened. Hey,
there has been. I think the biggest thing that has come out of this year, and if we go back to what the traditional year is, we sort of say the first quarter is busy. Typically in the middle of the year, people are on holidays, they're traveling, and then the fourth quarter of the year, we sort of see our second spurt of activity. And in our Fraser Valley, in the Vancouver markets, we had a really strong start to the year. And I think we talked about this before. Normally it would be, we'd start to see some real activity sort of in the late February timeframe. But this year we had it started pretty much in January. And, that's probably a combination of low interest rates. The fuel of the market has still been strong from the previous year. So we just got into an early market. And then of course, COVID hit, and the wall, it was like Trump's wall just went up. Stopped everything right there.
We're not going to talk about
We're not going to do that. No. But it was interesting because I was traveling at the time, and I came back, and it was mid-March. I got back just before really things started to shut down. And of course, there was no toilet paper anywhere and all those things. But it was an instantaneous break for all business, including real estate. Yeah. COVID hits. We all are experiencing a new world. We're all experiencing new things. And then when we started to ease back on the restrictions and we opened things up, my goodness, real estate jumped back in with a fury. And it was like we had a lot of pent up interest that had been stalled because of the break for COVID. And we jumped back in. And since that time, we never really had a slowdown in the second quarter. Our July was record levels of sales and listings. And in August, for example, of 2019, we had 2,048 listings in the Fraser Valley. And in August of 2020 to date, again, not finished off for the year or the month, we're at 2,993. So it's almost 1,900 more listings. And in addition to the listings, it's the sales have been pretty reasonable. We've got about a 2-to-1 sales ratio. So the sales in August of last year was from compared to 2,048 listings, we had 1,120 basically sales. And this year we've got 1,830 sales based on the 2,900 listings. So very strong. When you get a 2-to-1 ratio as far as listings, and that eventually, if you keep on a 2-to-1 pace, your supply becomes a little bit too much, and then you'll start to see some things easing off. But we've been experiencing multiple offers on properties. We've experienced pretty strong prices, not in every segment. So
I was going to ask you, is there a segment that's stronger than others? I mean, typically there often is, right? Sometimes condos are selling, but higher price stuff isn't selling, or vice versa. So where are we at today?
Ironically, we're in the mid-range, which the mid-range is $1 million. Which is there's some irony to that, obviously, over time. I think our strongest market probably has been sort of that 6 to 1 million. So why has that been stronger? That price point will bring you into a townhome. That price point will bring you into right at the sort of on the edge of a small home. Now, the benefit of being under $1 million has not changed. You can go with a high ratio financing when you're under $1 million. Once you get over that $1 million, you have to go with a higher down payment. So that slows things down a little bit. And then in the condominium market, it's interesting because there's an area that I've spent a fair amount of time working in, which is the White Rock area. And the condominium market has been saturated with the new construction. So we're actually seeing quite a slow market in condominiums in the White Rock area, and it's typically an area that you would say was insulated from a lot of the ups and downs. Not completely, but it's pretty stable as a marketplace, based on its location, close to the ocean, all those things. So very interesting to me to see what you can get value-wise in White Rock in a condominium compared to even a Fort Langley. If you want to have a property in Fort Langley that's a condo, you're probably paying $800,000 to $900,000 to get down in Fort Langley for a 2-bedroom condo, and you could probably do the same thing in White Rock for 5 to 6 because the supply is so much better. So there's some irony to that, and of course that marketplace. Normally, I would say it would be that first-time buyer that's been affected. But as you think about in White Rock, it's usually an age-restricted property. That's very common. It's also not going to appeal to investors because most projects in the White Rock area are non-rental projects. And the third little ditty on the White Rock area for condos is a lot of the older projects are very restrictive on pets. So unfortunately, so there's 3 people who get whammied in there. So you get the young couples they don't qualify because they're not 50. You get the investor, they're not interested in the product because it's not a possibility of having it as an investment, obviously. And then third of all, you've got downsizers who've got, fluffy, and they can't bring fluffy. So it's an interesting market. Anyways, I'm tracking it, and I've got some properties on marketing over there, and it's been a real struggle with it. So it's not the only area, but we are seeing some spotty movement. So there's an area in Ladner where I've been doing some business, and so it had no activity, and then all of a sudden it had activity. And so again, you're seeing some movement in those places in the marketplace. I think developers are I think they're being more careful about buying a lot of raw land right now. It seems like they're kind of in a holding pattern. I think the big companies will still are continuing to invest in land because of the fact that they've got to keep that machine rolling. But a lot of the medium to smaller development companies are being pretty cautious right now. And there's some good development property out there available for them. So as I say, I think it'll get absorbed provided we don't have a major relapse in our health system coming up. So so it's interesting to see the stats, and I wish I had the crystal ball, but my feeling really still stays attached to that, is that what does the fall bring as far as our health issues? We've got we've got a lot of people that have been depending on CERB. We have a lot of people where jobs are a little bit volatile if you're in small business, and we also have a fair amount of people that deferred on mortgage payments. So those things got to all kick back in order for us to get a healthy market continuing. So crossing our fingers for that, for sure.
Yeah. It's been such a wait and see type of year, and then things like this summer and real estate has kind of been a surprise,
Well, and I know I mean personally, I think we all have had our own epiphanies throughout the process. And for me today, walking home from my gym, I live in the White Rock area, of course, that, but walking home from my gym, beautiful sunshine until I hit a certain level on the hill and I saw the marine fog coming up, and I went, oh, that's fall. Fall is arriving. Marine fog is coming up the hillside. So, but big adjustments. I think we went through a great period of time where we weren't really worried about missing out on much because there wasn't much happening. But now, we're seeing life move a little bit more to normal side, if that's what you'd call it. And again, hopefully everybody stays healthy and we get through this fall without having a big relapse or challenge again.
Yeah. So what would your advice be to sellers and buyers at this point?
Well, I love the interest rate balance. So, if a person is looking at buying a property for the long term, I think it's an excellent time to be investing. Obviously, job security is an important part. So if you're in a situation where your job is pretty secure, your debt load is not over the top, there's an amazing opportunity with the interest rates for you to get into the marketplace. And maybe that's an increase in what you have now. I've had several clients who've moved from townhomes to homes, which is, we kind of see apartments to townhomes to homes. we've had some great opportunities to move people into some homes, the next step up because of the low interest rates. And,
My, I want to interrupt you there
sure,
because
no, go ahead.
you told me a couple stories, and I thought
Yeah,
it just made me think this is why you want to work with an experienced realtor, because you helped a couple people move up in the market,
yeah,
but you found them kind of unique deals. And
sure.
actually, I know you can't say much about them, but
No, it's
yeah,
a great point. I
yeah,
think our job in this business right now is to, it always is about maximizing our clients' interest. We want to try to sell for them on the high side, and we want to purchase for them a good deal.
right.
Um,
And you managed to
Again,
do that in a couple of occasions. Yeah.
yeah, there's been several people that have been looking for that upgrade in pricing. So one of the things that happens when you get into these markets that are changing, some homes that are really nice homes will sit on the market for a period of time that you didn't expect. And
Hmm.
then as agents, what happens is when we start to search for our buyers, we can sometimes overlook those ones that have been sitting there for a long time. We get caught up in the fury of what's new, what's coming out, what's new.
Yeah. Or
And
thinking they've been sitting there a long time, so there's maybe something wrong with them, right?
exactly.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
one has to go back to that now. And you have to go back and sort of say, well, what's been on the market for 200 days? And
Hmm.
you can see some trends or some indicators, or you can talk to the agent, but sometimes there's an indicator where they've sort of started to taper off on their pricing. My, I never want that for my seller.
Yeah, exactly.
I've always said, don't get into this where you take it down five, take it down five, take it down five, because
Yeah.
that's kind of like sharks circling. They know that you're trying to, and you have to really be careful on that as far as marketing. Not every agent feels that way, and so we've been very fortunate with some clients to take advantage of that. And again, that's my job.
Yeah.
But the best part about that was uh, that they were able to qualify because of low interest rates. So we were able to maximize it. And it's never changed. It's always been this in our business. People say, this is the budget. And
Hmm.
you always know that they want to just go a little bit above their budget because that next threshold is just a little better.
It's like
And
boats and 1-foot-itis.
totally. But with the interest rates as low as they are right now, people are able to go back to their banks, and their banks are seeing the value. And so we've been very fortunate to get some great properties this year. And
Mm.
and that'll continue. I mean, again, you just have to be prepared to do a bit of work on some of these properties when you're working with a buyer. And as a seller, when we market the properties, we have to be aware not to fall into that trap. We want to price
Hmm.
our properties well. We want to make sure the marketing is what is good, like good, strong marketing to the right buying group. But we
Yeah.
want to hit that market at the right price. We want to get the maximum, but we don't want to be sitting there forever. So, again, I think experience pays in that. It's actually not a very complicated philosophy. The challenge as a realtor is when you get into the business, like I did many years ago. If the house is worth 500,000 and the seller said I wanted a million, I said, great. Now, over time, you realize you have to actually temper their expectations. That's our big part of our job, is to make sure that we can give them some information so they can make a good decision on the value on their home and make sure it gets sold. So
Yeah.
that's experience.
And so this could change, but I'm sure you're asked all the time, like we kind of put this label on it, like, is it a seller's market? Is it a buyer's market? I'm almost hearing from you, even though there's been some multiple offers, it's kind of a balanced market in most, like in the middle segment.
Yeah, it's again, depending on the segment you're talking about. I think
Yeah.
overall it's pretty balanced. Again, I find it interesting to see some of the low end condo stuff is a little bit slower. There's a
Hmm.
bit more supply there. That price point for that person going from 500,000 prop a home of or a condo or something of 500,000 going to that 800. That seems to be the hottest spot right now. And I know that I've had some clients that have been in that, and we've had to sort of go on a daily watch looking for new properties. So there's a bit of a hotspot, but overall, I think it's probably been a strong market. Certainly not over the top, but I think it's been a pretty strong market, and stronger than we anticipated.
Hmm.
There's no question that I didn't anticipate it would stay as fueled through the July and August markets.
Hmm.
Uh, but again, we had that curveball throwing where we were stopped for a period of time. And it's just an interesting way that the public and the buying confidence picked up so quickly after we had such a major shutdown. very hard to anticipate that people would be that pent up. And remember, we're not getting a huge amount of foreign investment right now.
Yeah.
There's not the ability for them to, from foreign people to come into the country and do
To
a lot
get
of
here.
investing
Yeah.
right now. So you're
Yeah.
still getting a little bit of it because they still have some agents working probably in the background or have a relationship with them. But
Mm-hmm.
more of them are selling because they can't get into the country.
Mm.
And so the fuel is within this province, which
Yeah.
is, again, a very interesting.
It's an interesting test for the market because we've
Yeah,
had immigration be a big part of the market for so long.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It definitely changes the perspective. We thought that the market was, even though statistic wise it wasn't saying that, but we always felt like there was a big driving force from the foreign market coming in. And now we're discovering that, you know what, we actually were fueling our market pretty well ourselves.
Yeah.
And even without the foreign investment right now, we're still seeing a pretty strong market.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Foreign investment. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Um, I didn't prepare you for this question, but like, do you want to talk about what you have listed right now? I think you have a couple things, and maybe even if you have buyers looking for any particular thing, or you're looking for something.
Yeah, you know what? I'm working with some buyers right now that I'm trying to find acreages. We're starting to sort of poke through the different acreages. It's a great couple, and they are looking for a renovation special, and they've already renovated a property, and they still love each other, and they still want to do it again, which is
That is the
amazing to
test.
me. That is the test. That's a bit of a process when you're doing an acreage because it's, you don't have thousands of those acreages, but you are looking for some very specific needs out of those properties.
Mm-hmm.
I've got some great sellers right now. Unfortunately, I've got a couple that are in the condo market, and that's presenting a real challenge because we're changing our marketing approach. We're priced very well, but we're still not seeing the activity that we'd like.
Mm.
And I've sold a number of townhouses in the last little while too, so that's again been sort of that market, the strongest of the markets, that kind of that mid-range price wise.
Yeah.
Listings wise, personally, I don't carry 30 or 40 listings. I'm more on that personal side of it. I try to work with my clients, and most of my client base is past clients, people that are referred to me. So I do a lot of business that way.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got some new ones coming up that are, just will be very interesting to see what the reaction is. Some beautifully renovated townhouses that are not going to be cheap, but they're going to be in that price point where it could be very interesting for someone.
Oh, nice.
And I actually just had a meeting the other day with someone that wanted to sell their condo over in the South Surrey White Rock area. We looked at the numbers and they said, that's not enough to get out of the property. And they're fortunate because they can rent the unit out. And I said,
Okay.
if these numbers don't make sense to you, then the timing isn't right. Then obviously the rental is a real bonus. But that's the beauty of that investment. If you can rent it out, you don't have to sell it.
Yeah.
And with rentals now, a 2-bedroom condo in South Surrey White Rock is probably renting anywhere up to $2,000 a month.
Yeah.
That's servicing 400. Let's see, that's servicing almost $500,000 in mortgage amount, which is, it's amazing when you start to see that. So rentals had come up quite a bit over the last couple of years, and so that's starting to service some of the investments a little bit better. But it's not always the right time to sell. I think.
Yeah.
We get into these conversations and we, as agents, we want to sell property, but the last thing you want to do is put your sign up and try to sell something that has no potential to sell, because now all they remember is the non-success. So you've got to really be careful to say, hey, maybe this isn't the right timing for you,
Yeah.
And that means you get a little less as far as the listings go. But
well, good for you for being, helping your client discover that. I watched a real estate show recently where this guy, it was property in the Hamptons. And
okay.
this real estate person priced it like $10 million above what other properties were in the area. Just crazy. And so
that used to be, there's rumors.
Yeah.
That used to happen in our local market. There was some rumored agents who would price homes extremely high.
Yeah.
And then when a buyer would want to see the property, they would say, I can get it for a lot less for you.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So, they had these listings, and as the other agents wouldn't be showing these properties. So then if they get a buyer that came in from, say, out of town, and they'd say, well, this is a really good deal. Well, that can't do that anymore because we actually can't sell our own listings anymore.
Okay.
So that whole, and one of the protections that we put out into the public is we don't want to have an agent, the Canadian Real Estate Association Council, they don't want to have an agent represent more than one party. So those old days when the proverbial no cell phones, no fax machines, those are back in the 80s. They
Yeah.
put a sign on the lawn and then they'd wait till a buyer would come and then they would try to get a deal worked out. Doesn't work anymore. So
Oh, I didn't even know that. When I
yeah,
was a realtor, it was still that other way around. You could sell your own property.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. There's that was back. That's probably almost a year ago, maybe last year, last July.
Okay.
It slowly became more restricted as far as selling your own listings. We had it in place where we called it a dual agency, and so there was some
Right. Right.
documentation that you would have the seller and the buyer just sign off saying they acknowledge it as an agent. We were going to stand in the middle,
Yeah.
and both parties were going to just direct us without giving any inside information about what they wanted to
Yeah.
do, and we would handle it as a dual agent. Then they took that completely out, and so what they said was, unless you're in a, the only reason that you can do that now is if you are in a rural area. Say that there's only one agent within
Okay.
500 miles, you'd have to deal
Sure.
with it then. But otherwise, they now have it set up where each buyer and each seller needs independent agency.
Okay.
So that has a that's a long, great conversation about what the rule is. But in
Yeah.
simple terms, the protection is there so that each person is represented and that the information that affects them making that purchase or the sale is not divulged to the other side. So now that everybody feels as though they've been properly represented.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
That sounds like a good change. I mean, I can remember back when I was a realtor where you kind of, it was a little bit there. We won't go into it, but there were some
yeah,
situations where it was like,
it
and
does.
the client would
Yeah,
grumble a little bit, and we just kind of say, well, that's the way it is. But
yeah.
yeah, that's probably good.
It has its
Much more fair.
pluses. I mean, typically in real estate, we have these pendulums that swing, and they sometimes get a little heavy on one side, and it takes a little time for it to settle in the middle. This is a bit
Yeah.
heavy because you do have a lot of owners that are listing their properties with you who are saying to you, I want you to sell the house. And then you have to have the conversation where you say, I actually can't sell the house. I'm going to market it for you.
Yeah.
And sellers that, the old days we used to do open houses. They say, well, let's get it on the market. Let's have you do an open house. Hopefully you can bring us an offer. Well, that's changed all that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if I'm at an open house,
Mm-hmm.
which we have not had during COVID, that was sort of directed by CREA not to do that, but
Yeah.
they're opening it up again. But we actually had to tell buyers as they walked in the door, you're welcome to ask me a specific question about the home, the size of the rooms, but please don't tell me anything about yourself. Don't tell
Yeah.
me anything about where you're coming from, what your motivation is. I
Ah,
can't have that information. If you want to talk to another agent, please do so. So
interesting.
yeah, and again, it got a little heavy-handed to the other side of the pendulum. So you're
Right.
almost becoming a bit abrupt and rude to people who are coming through your open house, and maybe
Right.
they came in from Eastern Canada or wherever, and they just want to be buying a house. You had to be pretty abrupt with them because when they make a change, they're always looking for test cases.
Yeah.
So you had to be very careful to make sure you stayed to the letter of the changes. So
Oh yeah.
yeah, but again, it's settling in, and I think overall, you're right. The bottom line is in our industry, we need to have people need representation that at the end they feel as though their needs were completely met. We're talking
Mm-hmm.
about going from a house 30 years ago for $50,000.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're talking about baseline houses at $1 million. It's big stakes, and they do need to know that they've been well represented.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Probably makes you you have to have good relationships with your other realtors in that case, right? Like
you do.
you want them showing your homes.
Sure, you do. And I think there's the age old thing is that when you're putting a home on the market, agents want to know the information about the property so that when their buyer is giving them the criteria list, that they can actually go to your listings and see that they fit the criteria. Because
Mm-hmm.
as agents, we don't want to waste anybody's time. Our buyers, we don't want to waste the seller's time. We don't want to waste our time. We want to get
Yeah.
that information. So there's no question the information we put out in the MLS is really important. And
Mm-hmm.
uh, and also good relationships within the Fraser Valley board. I think we have I can't speak for most of the boards, obviously I don't know them, but in the Fraser Valley we have a fairly cooperative real estate association and boards. We seem to gel well between here, the Chilliwack's and that. Vancouver is a little bit tougher. It's got a much higher density of realtors. It's a much more aggressive. You're seeing a lot more of those agents that are coming out to the Fraser Valley and doing business, which is fine. But it's a lot more congested. There's a lot more of those agents out there. So it's a little bit more of a competitive. Let's use competitive.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not usually politically correct, but we'll go with that right now.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, cool. Well,
Yeah.
we went down a bit of a rabbit trail. It's interesting to
Sure.
me. I hope it's interesting to people who are listening. And yeah, so yeah,
Yeah.
thanks for going in that direction and sharing that
Yeah.
information.
No, my pleasure. It's also interesting to see, and we chatted just briefly about CMHC and the
Yeah, yeah. You
insurance
want to say some more
rules.
about that?
I just want to kind of an update, which is sort of diffusing an update. So CMHC is the government housing or the government insurance policy that we have for anybody that's a high ratio finance. And CMHC recently decided to actually make the qualification process a little more challenging for buyers, which long and short of it is it's like interest rates. You had to qualify at a higher rate in order to get CMHC financing. But CMHC is only one of several, or there's three of them, that actually do the insurance on it. It's the government version, but there's also the private lenders. And the other key one would be Genworth, would probably be the next one. They didn't decide to follow suit, which is very rare. Usually when CMHC leads the way, they follow suit with their new rules. They elected to stay with their old qualification process. And now I'm hearing some grumblings from CMHC that they feel like that, we're not doing our jobs by putting people in harm's way because we haven't joined in with them on their qualification process. And I think that kind of the difference between what CMHC is offering and Genworth is pretty nominal. But I think what's happening is the market share is maybe shifting a little bit away from CMHC, so they may be having a little bit of a struggle with that. And the policies are there to protect our public. There's no question that those are the policies that they put in place, but there can be a balance. And I think where maybe CMHC is seeing that they've maybe pushed that balance a little too far, and the other companies are saying, no, we believe in these people. We're going to finance them if their qualifications are there. So interesting to see. I mean, I'm seeing some stuff in the press about it. There's a little bit of a banter going on, and you always have to take that with a grain of salt. But I still think that it's nice to see competition in that end of it, because I think buyers deserve the opportunity to be able to go to more than one place to see if their qualification works.
Yeah, you never want a monopoly, right? So it just gives people alternatives.
Yeah, it does. I mean, we've had some monopolies that haven't worked out so well for us in the past, and I think that it's good to have a selection and options for sure. So that's kind of an interesting one. I'm tracking what's happening in the condo market. That's interesting to me. And then other than that, just conversation between myself and other peers in the industry and just seeing what they're finding. And we're all kind of finding similar things that are going on. So it reinforces sort of what our conversation is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So real estate wise, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Well, I think, for simplicity for everybody, it's just getting in touch with through email. Is mike@fblifestyle.com.
Okay.
I like that. It's probably the quickest way on an email. There is obviously my cell numbers available. Texting is probably the best bet for that, because the phone sometimes gets a little bit busy, but texting my number at 604-889-7653. 889 sold. Kind of
Whoa.
cliche, pretty good. Eh? I got that back in the day when that was the best thing you could do, because there was no other way to market yourself, but I kept that for a long time.
Oh yeah. Did you have it like bold letters, SOLD?
I never got too far in it. I mean, I held on to it. It was kind of, we laughed about getting that number, but I thought, well, I'll use it when I need to use it. But people usually can track you down without that. So
yeah.
And I'm happy. I'm very fortunate. My client base I have an incredible client base of loyal customers that refer me to their friends, and I do business with people many times. And if a person has questions about what the market's doing, I'm happy to chat about that. And there's no pressure on my end of it, because at this stage in my business career, I get to choose who I work with as much as people get to choose if they want to work with me, which is important to me, because the process requires a lot of confidence, a lot of work together, and to make things come together. So yeah, I'm always happy to chat with people about their questions in the business.
Great. Well, I've seen how you operate, and I'm really impressed. And I hope that if people have some real estate needs, that they will get in touch with you. So, thanks
Sure.
again for this real estate update, and maybe we
Thanks,
will
Rod.
chat again online in a month or two. See,
We'll
try to
make
try to
sure we
keep
can.
up with all this interesting market.
Yeah, next time, yeah, maybe next time there'll be something earth shattering. But at this stage of the game, I get quietly optimistic that we're going to see some continued good markets. And I just hope everybody stays safe. And, we've learned through this pandemic that it's the priority is ourselves. I mean, everything else is comes around that. But first and foremost, take care of ourselves and our families. I'm glad that I feel lucky. My family and extended family have been all very healthy through the process. I hope everybody else has the same experience too.
Excellent. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Rod.